So y'all, my face, as I was doing financial historical research and came across a statement that was describing systems at a point of destabilization. And I went, oh, this applies to victims of abuse. The abuse dynamic is a system. Now, I've talked about this before because Sabine Hossenfelder, she is a scientist. She was talking about climate and what you see in the climate system. And so what she said was, this is a general behavior of systems near a critical point. Deviations from average get more extreme and they show correlations between each other. And I really like that because, that is what we see in the abuse dynamic. As you get further into the dynamic, as the abuser feels more entitled to power over the victim, the behaviors and incidences get more extreme, especially since the victim is either breaking under that abuse or they're trying to stop it, trying to get away from it. They may be trying to leave the relationship or at least push back on the abusive behaviors. And so you get these larger and larger pendulum swings between normal and these extreme incidences. So, as she said, wait a minute, the deviations from the average get more extreme, right? So, here's what it said regarding the financial systems. The faster you approach destabilization, the more effort required to stabilize a system. So, the abuser has to enact more power to maintain their position of power. Not only to maintain their position of power, but to maintain the system, ergo their control over like another person. From the video's perspective, it's governments maintaining control, as being a government or businesses. And the term that the video used was insolvent. That insolvent organizations begin to cannibalize the pieces of the system over which they operate because they can no longer create value. There are no places to expand. There's nothing more to colonize or conquer. And so they turn inward and start cannibalizing the pieces of the system. Now, in an interpersonal dynamic, what are those pieces? Those pieces are the victim. Those pieces are other members of the let's say family unit, friend group, anybody who knows like the married couple that's experiencing the abuse dynamic. And it says that this cannibalization of the system comes at the expense of people within that system. And that's where we like tie into the low and the high status. Even in like mammalian research that I've seen, animals that are high status have access to the resources. And they have access to the resources at the expense of animals who are lower status within that group. The lower status animals are often also targets of abusive behavior from the higher status animals. And so when we're pulling this all together, you're in an abuse dynamic. The other person has put themselves in a position of power over you and also convinced you that they belong there, convinced you that you should be lower than you are, that you do not have equal say, that they are the judge, jury, and executioner. They're the ones who determine reality, and that you have to agree. And then they use establishing that position to therefore turn it into a zero-sum dynamic. They excel at your expense. They've colonized you and your mind, your life, your things, your friends, your resources, your energy, your time, your money, and they leverage it for their own benefit. They're going to talk you out of, or hurt you out of using those things for your own benefit when in reality those are your things to make decisions about. So they're going to convince you not to use them and therefore allow them access to them so they can use it however they want to. So you're sitting here and you're like, well, how do I not have any money? I work more than this other person often. Or how do I not have a car? Or how do I not have the ability to go out and see friends? I used to have friends. What happened with that? Either they've isolated you from your friends or they've taken over your friend group and now that no longer feels safe. But abusers They trick you into a dynamic. They create a system. They escalate in abuse to get ever more power, just like a corporation where it's never enough. There always has to be higher returns for the profit holders. And then there comes a point where you can't expand anymore. There's nothing more to get. And so you start cannibalizing inward at the people who are vulnerable and who are not able to fight or push back. So as you're in the system, the extremes get more extreme. That shows you're moving toward destabilization of the system. The abuser is going to increase their attempts at control, their stabilization, because as far as they're concerned, it should exist the way they think it should exist. Fundamentally, they're insolvent. They cannot create their own value, so they have to steal it from others, and the others that they steal it from is you, the victim. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, or maybe not, and I'll talk to you next time.